Surprise, 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 folks. 2-10's over. Season's over. It's on to 2025 in a big way. Welcome to National Signing Day here at the Voice of College Football, Florida State style, and some good news to report. So National Signing Day usually brings hope and optimism, but it was looking like a doomsday for Florida State until this morning. We got Georgitis, of course, here from the Renegade Report with a smile on his face for the first time in months, except George is just a good dude and has a smile on his face for us regardless. But we know that he's biting back, all sorts of,
we got a real
feelings
smile
over the season because it's been
a
rough
real
one,
smile today, baby.
It's nice to have some good news. And we will certainly talk about the coaching staff and getting a first-rate offensive coordinator. And I know you addressed that for our crowd after the ball game on Saturday, so we appreciate that. But, man, this is way better than expected.
It's on like a pot of neck bones, as we say down here in the South, Mark. Yes, it's a complete on like a pot of neck bones. Okay. If you go to Granny's house, she's always got some neck bones or a ham hock with the lima beans or collard greens, stuff like that. So yeah, we say it's on like a pot of neck bones, and that's what's going on. Unreal flip of fortunes. It's crazy kind of how fast things turn. Florida has their crazy turn where all of a sudden they're jumped up. Miami, like a sieve, getting flips, and guys that didn't flip to them that they thought they were going to get, guys that have committed elsewhere, they're dropping like a rock. And Florida State with a meteoric rise from like 58 up to 23. The only kind of negative today, Solomon Thomas did end up flipping to LSU, but we've got a lot of good news. We've got a lot more flips coming our way, and not just bodies, guys. And this is the thing we've talked about in my philosophy about kind of how we recruited that needed to change. No, they got a good 8 or 9 guys in here that will have a chance to compete and get some snaps as freshmen. They really went after size. They got some perfect fits for the schemes coming in. You mentioned it. I'll do that before we get into the names real quick. Of course, Gus Malzahn was announced before the game Saturday. That's been kind of known. Then the defensive hire comes later. So getting Gus in here, we believe Herb Hand is going to be the offensive line coach. They just kind of got the coordinators in place in a hurry to do this early signing day to get the recruiting done. And I think we'll get the assistant coaches later. But yeah, Gus Malzahn, all of a sudden Josh Petty didn't commit to Georgia Tech today. There's a 6'7" offensive tackle who's an elite offensive tackle, probably be the best tackle we've signed in since I can remember, and Chasen Brown. If we can get him from UCF to follow Gus over, you get Kevin Sperry to end up signing, who is a perfect fit, who's got the arm out of his butt and can really run the ball. Tons of great things happening. The biggest news on the coaching front today, though, was Pot Roast said his goodbyes at Nebraska, and it's official. It's reported, done deal. Pot Roast, a.k.a. Terrence Snipeman, will be the defensive line coach for FSU, and he's as hot a name as there is in the game. A good place to start with. This one isn't a flip. I said Solomon Thomas. If we would have landed him, I would have considered that a flip. That's one of the things these kids do. Well, they'll stay committed, but they're done. He's been committed to LSU for a while now, in my opinion. It's just kind of it would have been a shock to get him. So he left. But the other guy, Kevin Wynn, he did stick. And I consider that a flip because I think he was it was between South Carolina and Georgia up until very recently. And getting Pot Roast locked in was a big part of that. He's the best defensive tackle we've signed in 8 years since Marvin Wilson. And he is the perfect nose tackle for Tony Elliott's defense and for our guy Pot Roast. Huge signing. I mean, that's one of those guys, that can come in and play as a freshman, and you can build a floor of your program over a couple of years. Can't speak highly enough about that Kevin Wynn signing. Mark, fired up about it, and that's to the staff. That was a big one, getting that staff in here. And then we'll get into more of it, but I'll let you ask the next question.
Well, absolutely. So let's take it one piece at a time, and we'll stay with the recruiting class here. So the big news are the flips. So you've touched upon a few here and there. So you just want to line them up and mow them down for us?
I got it lined up. Kevin Wynn, again, wasn't a flip. I considered that. But the big flips, there was 3 or 4 of them. The first one we got was Shamar Arnaud. the four-star DB. It was between him and Conan Banny all summer. We weren't sure which one we were going to get. Conan Banny ended up committing elsewhere, and it was kind of like a lost cause. The season fell apart. We didn't know if Pat Surtain was going to be back. He, of course, interviewed for the Southern Miss job, rumors of NFL jobs, but Shamar Arno out of nowhere commits. His edit was kind of vertically aligned, and it was a giant paragraph basically saying, "I'm coming to Florida State because of Pat Surtain." So that in itself is a breath of fresh air and can tell us guys that, hey, maybe Pat Surtain's locked in. Somebody asked, is it 100% that Pat's staying? Well, 100. There's nothing in life that's 100%, guys. But that is a dang good sign. I don't think there's any way he would have done that or worded his post that way if Pat Surtain wasn't planning on being here this year. So that's probably the smallest one of the three big flips we got, but definitely a big one and a perfect kind of DB for Pat Surtain. I don't think anybody's going to question his evaluation and who he decides to bring in.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff.
The next one. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
No, go right to it.
Yeah. The next one, Osman Kroma. Now, this is a name that, I mean, absolute elite running back. Was committed to Georgia. Florida State had been on him hard. A lot of people, myself included, thought he was going to end up being here. Same story. The season fell apart, blamed up coaching staff, ends up committing to Georgia. We get that flip today. Now, he hasn't signed his grant and aid yet, but the people that I've talked to behind the scenes, they're not worried about it. It's just a matter of time. He wouldn't have made this move. Like, he's not one of these kids that's just flippantly going to flip and do all that stuff. I'm pretty sure he's locked in as a Nole. But Usman Kroma grew up playing with Cam Davis in Georgia. They're great friends. Cam posted a picture of those two guys to get him in. A lot of people were saying we need to really hit the portal for running backs. I don't subscribe to that. The problem with our running backs this year was the offensive line. And that's going to get addressed again with those coordinators we brought in. They're addressing those needs. So to add Kroma to Davis, maybe you get one guy out of the portal. We'll see. All of a sudden, that running back room is looking really good. CJ Campbell, who they've offered as a transfer, probably could come in. But this guy right here, he's that guy. He's an absolute stud. And it's not a surprise to me and a couple other people, like in that we had a good idea, we had a chance. But yeah, it's certainly a surprise to get him to commit today. And anytime you're 2-10 and you flip a player from Georgia, I mean, what can you say? What can you say about what Gus Malzahn, these guys have done in a short amount of time?
Yeah. So is this a thought process that these are like just relationships that have been built for a long, long time and are just been somewhat under the surface?
So reading into this one, the relationship, Yak, looking like Yak may end up on the staff. And that wouldn't surprise me a bit because, yeah, this is a 3-year, 4-year relationship with this guy. Shamar Arno wasn't quite as long. Like, they got on him like last summer, I think. But Usman Kroma is somebody that they have wanted for a long, long time. So, yeah, definitely a big one. And these guys, you know, there was such uncertainty. You can't blame somebody for not signing up for whatever new coordinator is going to come in. I think getting Gus in here, you know, them really hammering, fixing the line of scrimmages and being their focus, I think that was a big part of getting him back in this class.
Then there's always the momentum that can either go for you or against you. It's easy to go against you. It's tough to get it going for you, especially coming off that season. But if you can somehow get one guy to believe and then a second guy to believe, and then he can show the other guys that, well, these two, your two buddies, and obviously almost all these guys are connected in some way in regards to they played together, they played against each other, or they're just connected on social media, or they played against, you know, a brother or somebody then you start to sell the vision.
When you look at Gus Malzahn, as I keep hammering on the offensive line, like if you're Usman Kroma, you've got 20 years of Gus Malzahn offenses that even if the team doesn't do good, they're a 5-7 team, they're still a top 10 rushing offense, and the running back still has 1,300 yards. So, like, I mean, Gus Malzahn getting in here, yeah, it couldn't hurt. I'm sure that's a huge part of it. And the same thing for the next guy. The next big flip is a guy that, to your point, Javon Boggs, he's a guy that year-long relationship that they've been after and after, ends up committing to UCF and Gus Malzahn and that great running offense due to the, kind of issues at Florida State. Next thing you know, boop, all of a sudden Gus comes back and he posts some eyeballs like, dang, like this is ironic. And sure enough, he ends up flipping today. Javon Boggs, a 4-star wide receiver that this coaching staff absolutely loves. Florida with after. Another one of these guys that he's no kind of body. This is a guy that's going to come in and compete.
Absolutely. Are we done yet? You got like 6 of them, right?
Those are the flips. There's some other flips, but they had already, happened. Kevin Sperry, the 4-star quarterback, had previously flipped and committed to us. So that's another good one. He's a beast, but was kind of already there. Same with Chase Lofton, the tight end. He had flipped from Nebraska. He's the number 2 player in Nebraska. Folks had kind of thought maybe he would flip back or go somewhere else. He ended up locking in and committing. And as you look at Javon Boggs right here, 6 foot. That's what I thought. He's 6 foot and a half, so close to 6'1". He's one of these shorter guys. He's kind of the foil to the rest of the wide receivers we'll talk about in this class. They really went after size with the guys they have signed, and the guys are going to push the sign. So he's got a unique role in the offense, and for them to go after him the way they did, they love him and his athleticism. So real excited to see what he can do here at Florida State.
Do you have any backstory on Lofton in regards to being able to go up and grab a guy from Nebraska?
Yeah, man. I think it's the first player we've ever signed from the state.
Huh.
If I'm being honest, I don't know what the exact impetus of it was. I think it's largely to do with the success of our freshman tight ends and kind of how Nebraska's season went, if I had to guess. But, hats off to them for getting that relationship done and getting them in there, because Thompson's a damn good recruiter at tight end. I mean, you saw what he did with Landon Thomas and Amari Williams this past year. And Mike Norvell is really high on him. Like, they really believe he can come in here and compete. He was talking about in his press conference, of course, Amari Williams, the 5-star we brought in last year, he was a DN / tight end. So they're still going to want to work him at DN this spring. He's a guy who reclassified. So, as a pretty much senior in high school, he played tight end for us. They're going to be able to work him in spring at the DN, see how that's going to work out, try to play him both ways. And Mike feels real comfortable that Lofton can come in and kind of fill that hole and provide that second or third tight end on the roster for him, like, immediately. I think, that's part of it, that, like, how hard they went at him and made him a priority is how they got him there.
So if you dropped out of space and saw that Florida State had the 27th ranked class in the country, you would be somewhat disappointed about that, of course. But considering what's happened on the football field and how it's translated to what looked like the snowball rolling in the wrong direction downhill, that it's been recovered to this degree. So Florida State up from where's the lowest you've seen them ranked?
We were up to 23 before we lost Solomon Thomas. And
no, what's the lowest you've seen?
Oh, I think 58. It might have got down to like 70 at some point, but I think it was 58 here a couple of days ago. So a heck of a climb for sure.
Yeah, 27 with 17 commits. So to put that in perspective, Maryland's in front of them, but they've got 23 commits. So that's not even accurate in terms of per player evaluation.
See the average? What's the average?
Yeah, let's see here.
I'm guessing probably 89, 88.
Yeah, we're at 88.9.
Yeah. And that's a boost. I don't even know what it was before, but that definitely got boosted a little bit today. And there's, we got more of the commits to go, but now's a good time to talk about, how it could possibly go up. The rest of these aren't going to go up. We talked about it off air, but we just found out right before coming on air, the kind of breaking news right now. Josh Petty, the longtime Florida State commit, ends up flipping to Georgia Tech. It's a whole hullabaloo. He didn't sign. He decided to hold off on that. So rumor mill is rumbling, and all of a sudden there's a little bit of hope you can get the blue chip tackle Josh Petty in the class. If you could do that, that should pretty much fill the hole of Solomon Thomas, jump you up a few spots. And there's also the real diamond in the rough would be the third UCF guy that I would hope we could possibly get, and Chasten Brown, who is 6'7", absolute specimen, like prototype offensive tackle. So yeah, there's definitely an opportunity to climb. Also, Tayshawn Gelsey will not be signing with Florida. He's a 6'4", 215-pound wide receiver / tight end. Florida was recruiting him. They just wanted him at tight end. If Florida State's willing to give him a chance at wide receiver, pretty sure he's going to end up in this class as well. So Mike Norvell said another, 4, 5 guys maybe. I don't think he was counting the JUCO guys maybe in that number, because I thought we were more at 15 than 17. But yeah, definitely could get up to 20, maybe 21 before it's all over with. And if they do that, I'm hoping, if we climb into the top 25, I will be just skipping down the road. But there's an outside chance. Let Miami drop a few spots and let us get some surprises on some of these that push the commitment down the road. We're going to see what they're going to do. If they're going to fire Lance Guidry, and, third year in a row having to get rid of coordinators, some funny stuff could happen. So, yeah, it's unreal. I'm fired up, Mark. I can tell. I'm sure the audience can tell by how fast I'm talking. But, yeah, it's been a long time coming. Long time coming. That was a rough 2 or 3 months, brother.
Yeah, it has been.
But
so did he say when he's going to sign?
Negative. Like this, he just announced it right before we went live.
Okay.
But he chose not to sign. I believe. Right. I'm not sure if he said he was going to push it to the regular signing day, but definitely not signing with Georgia Tech today.
Okay, you did say that that he just announced, because I'm mixing him up with somebody else. I've heard so many names today.
Bro, I'm with you.
Another top guy that was supposed to sign somewhere and he didn't, and then said he was going to announce on Friday. But that was not Josh Petty. Okay. Yeah. Josh Petty. Because in listening to some of the national analysis today, there was a lot of talk about Georgia Tech recruiting better than they have in forever. And that was when it was assumed that Josh Petty was going to be one of the commits coming in.
Yep. They definitely upped their commitment to football. There's no doubt. And they're riding high, but it's still Georgia Tech at the end of the day. It's like, when Florida State, when they've got the momentum, it definitely wouldn't be surprise me for them to get them in there. And I can't speak enough about this staff. It was kind of, when it was just Gus and you didn't know who the O-line coach is going to be, when it was just Tony White, there was some questions. But having Gus, Tony, and now Pot Roast locked in, and we're hoping Herb Hand, Florida State, if this thing rolls the way it ends up like we think it's going to go, we're going to have one of the best staffs in the country. I truly believe that. We'll see how it goes. But it's going to have to get fixed quick. They don't have to go win 10 games next year, but you're in a position where if you can show, like Florida did this year, that you can win 6 or 7 games next year with this staff, especially Pot Roast, man. My dogs are going crazy.
They're pumped up too.
Yeah, when I get to talking, they get fired up and they start fighting. But Pot Roast, man, elite. I know we're talking high school, but that entire front 7 has hit the portal. Okay, and now these guys are. There's a kid named Judy, a couple other ones that are retweeting, Death Row for Life, which is his Twitter caption, and I guess it's something to do with their group and stuff. So yeah, it wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those guys come. One of them is this white defensive end, number 90, named James Williams, who's like a sophomore, I believe, going into his junior year, maybe a redshirt freshman because he redshirted last year, but huge potential, 6'6", 250 pounds. And in his interview recently, as my dogs knocked my lights off the shelf, he starts talking about Pot Roast and kind of his family issues that he had and kind of having a tough start at Nebraska, missing meetings, things of that nature. And he could have been kicked out, like maybe coordinators, like the writing was on the wall. But Pot Roast really took him under his wing. And he said he was a father figure at the beginning of it. And as he started talking and kept talking, like tears are filling his eyes. And he says, no, he is my father. I consider him my father. So I think you can pencil him in to come through the portal to Florida State, along with several other players that literally played in that offense and had, gave up no rushing touchdowns in a single year. You can get Daryl Jackson, you can get Farmer to come back, and all of a sudden you add 3 or 4 guys from that front seven, along with the JUCO defensive tackle they signed in, what's his name? Tylen Cleveland, a couple other guys thereafter. You can really turn this D-line around in 1 year. And it's not like our D-line was terrible. It certainly wasn't. It wasn't what Florida State expects, but this defense was heavily hampered by the offense. So super, super, super excited about what this defense could be, especially that front seven in this 3-3-5 defense and kind of the pieces that they got bringing in.
You wonder if some of these coaches are intrigued by building something from the ground up, coming in and saying, okay, this thing has been leveled to the ground and we got a chance to make it exactly what we want it to be, and work with a lot of young players and not a whole lot of attitude, and show what we can do in building something this just has to be a total reset.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd really have to talk to somebody. I think part of it is that when you're as bad as we were this year in 2-10, like, they'd have to really mess up to not jump the offense at least 50 spots and the defense at least 20 spots. So there's that. You do have that kind of leverage there. It's not like you're taking a coordinator job that had the number 1 defense. So if you have the number 10 defense, you made a mistake. I'm sure that was part of the conversation with Norvell when they came in. This, Tony White, this is going to be my defense, right? You're not going to be telling me we need to do this. And, obviously he wanted to bring that 3-3-5, not to keep the 4-2-5. So I agree there. And another part of it is just we as fans and even some media people and things of that nature, we see 2-10 and think like, oh, that's the end of the world. Who would ever want to take that job? But these coaches have egos and they've watched football for 30, 40, 50 years, however long they've been around. And they know what Florida State is. We were just 13-0 and got snubbed from the college football playoff last year. And it's not like we were so untalented. We weren't the worst talented team in the ACC this year. There's just some things really, really went on bad behind the scenes. So, yeah, I think, Nebraska found out. Nebraska is nowhere near as a bad situation as us. Our old Pfluger, our buddy Pfluger got on there and was like, oh, I can't believe they made this lateral move. Guys, Nebraska learned this is not a lateral move, okay? They may be both power, conference, whatever you want to say. But there's a big difference in Nebraska and Florida State when it comes to brand and all that good stuff. It's been 30 years since Nebraska could kind of hold our jock strap. It just is what it is, and it's in Nebraska. So these guys that went from Texas and Florida up there to play, they're probably going to follow their guy. And Matt Rule even said something about it a couple weeks ago. He thought they would have 30 to 50 guys in the portal. So, yeah, I think it's just a perfect storm. I can't be higher on the hires, man. I know some people were kind of rough on him, but I think Mike Norvell, he said he was going to get this thing fixed quick. And I think he's planning on doing that. He mentioned in his press conference, Ira Shafel asked him a question. He's like, and I'm paraphrasing here, but in reference to the exit interviews and who will possibly hit the portal and who won't and things of that nature, he said, Mike, well, when you're talking to these guys and they're, and they're telling you that they're going to do all the right things and telling you everything you want to hear, they're bought in for the climb and what it's going to take, but their actions haven't matched up to that point, like at all. Like, how do you parse that? And he said flatly, oh, those guys don't get a chance. They're gone. So, I mean, you kind of see where he's at with it. So there's a group of guys that's definitely going to be gone. And the other guys, as far as if they want to stay, they're going to have to walk into an absolute grind. From hearing Mike talk today, like, it's a legitimate, like, desperation. They aren't playing around. It's not going to be much fun. And everybody that came in this class and will come in the portal, they're going to get that upfront knowledge that it's going to be a grind, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get things right.
Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, everyone. Please like the video. You're already here, and so just get that out of the way. Please like the video. It helps the YouTube algorithm. Head on over to the Renegade Report. It's right here on YouTube, of course, with George. And again, like the video, comments, questions are welcome. We appreciate super chat contributions as well. What's going on at the Renegade Report?
Man, we are busy, busy, busy. I did a good hour 20, hour 30 today at about 2:00, breaking down all the breaking news, everything with the coaching staff and stuff like we're talking about now. But I also had James Coleman on. he got on the whiteboard and broke down a little bit of the 3-3-5 defense and what that all entails. So go check that out. Of course, Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 Eastern, as always. We're going to jump back on with the Sunday shows at 7 Eastern too, probably. And of course, the Renegade Roast every Monday at 8:30 Eastern. So just trying to stay busy. And the Florida State fans, they're coming back in droves. We'd love to see you. Make sure you, of course, you hit the like and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football and over there at my channel there at the Renegade Report. And we really, really appreciate it.
There it is, folks. Good looking channel right there. The Renegade Report. It's easy to find. I found it in 1.2 seconds. So get on over there. I got
lucky with the name. Like, I really got lucky with that name. Like, pat myself on the back on that.
Hey, it's about marketing. It is about marketing. So that was a good choice on your part. And where did that come from?
Just sitting for a day trying to figure out the tomahawk talk, all the different things, and then Googling if they existed already. And there's a Renegade Report that is like a Vice News type thing, but there was none for FSU. There was actually one like from back in 2013 that somebody hadn't done anything with in like 10 years. So I got lucky with it. I actually found out that Chris had something afterwards. I never found it because it wasn't a YouTube channel or anything, but he had something called the Renegade Sports Report that covered softball and stuff. So that was kind of ironic that we both started them at the same time and became friends later on and was like, hey, what is this? But yeah, the Renegade Report, man. We appreciate everybody for joining. And we're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. And we're going to start doing a lot of members only stuff. With the season the way it was, I felt so dirty. I didn't even mention memberships. Like, it's like, it's all we could do to do our regular shows and be so negative. But with the next month, with the portal, the signing day, everything going on, we're going to be wide open. We're going to start doing great guests. Last night I had Javian Elliott, the former preferred walk-on, turned Tampa Bay Buck, Carolina Panther, Toronto Argonaut. He's got a book coming out December 8th called The Unconquered Walk-On. Go check that out on Amazon. There's no pre-order, but as soon as it opens up, check that. Go check that interview. Just trying to stay busy and finally ready to have some positive stuff to talk about, some legitimate conversations, and just not talking about the same thing every single week, decommitment, and the same issues of the football team. So it's a lot of excitement, a lot of momentum. We talked about ad nauseum for the past 2 months. Like, as soon as that Florida game ends, we need immediately rumors. And, by Monday, we need people hired at these coordinator positions. And Mike Norvell heard it. They fired the coordinators after the Notre Dame game. And as soon as that Florida game ended, the Gus Malzahn rumor started. By Sunday, he was locked in. By Monday, Tony White was locked in. And now on Wednesday, we got Pot Roast, who was, I think they just hurried to get him because it was so crucial to get Kevin Wynn and get after some of the other guys. But yeah, look for the rest of it to get filled out. But they did exactly what they needed to, as opposed to previous years where you waited and for playoff people or this or that. And, you don't, it affects your recruiting class to a high level. To salvage it to the level they did. And we've still got, another 6 or 7 guys to talk about. Truly impressive. And I couldn't be happier. I mean, it's hard to imagine it going any better than it did today, if I'm being honest.
I could have brainstormed for 5 hours. I would not have come up with the name of Gus Malzahn for the next offensive coordinator's role for Florida State. Maybe I should have, because I put out a hot seat coaches rankings just about a week ago, and I had Gus Malzahn on there. But you don't necessarily think of what has been mostly a successful head coach at a big time level, SEC, Big 12, dropping down to become an offensive coordinator. Now, he didn't get fired. Technically, I don't know if he thought he was about to get fired or he's going the Chip Kelly route and he's just kind of needing to take a break or maybe a permanent break from being a head coach and would rather just coach football and scheme and draw up X's and O's. I don't know.
It's funny you say that. The same thing here. For 3 months, we're talking about who could possibly get in here, this or that. And Gus Malzahn never entered my brain. Now, I know he's the head of the snake. I know the go-go offense, the SMU offense. I know all that Mike Norvell's offense, ASU's offense is all predicated on that and his fundamentals and his foundation. It's all off of that. It's the same tree. He's the head of the snake. He gave Mike his first job. Mike gave the Marion, his first job, the UNLV offensive coordinator. So it fits perfectly. It should have been one of the first names he thought about. But I think what happened is, I don't think anybody going into the year thought that Gus was going to be on the hot seat or was going to leave. It was just kind of, he's at UCF. He got all this time at Auburn. Why would he leave? They got to give him time to get it right. And I think as it got, all of a sudden, people start putting him on hot seat lists and things of that nature. And it was about 3 weeks ago, I was in a space with Newberg and a couple other guys and was talking to them, and they asked me, they're like, who do you think it could be? Well, man, I said Dan Mullen would be like my first option, but I do not think he'll come at all. And then I named Brendan Marion, of course. It's like, it's everybody's. But then, my take was, I think there's a very good chance, and I would be comfortable with a head coach either getting fired or resigning and pulling a Chip Kelly and coming down. I think that would be really help Mike Norvell as far as letting him have somebody that could just take over the offense and do their thing. And then I forget who said it. It wasn't me that said it, but somebody had just, said somebody like Gus Malzahn. And then all of a sudden it was an epiphany. All that came into my head. Oh my gosh, he's the head of the snake, all this stuff. Literally kind of, whether you like it or not, a lot of people they want to put his head coaching ability against his offensive coordinating ability, which I cannot disagree more. But like, if you're going to bring somebody in to let Mike Norvell spend more time recruiting, pay attention to the minutia, kind of what's going on in all the rooms, look at the defense, et cetera, et cetera. There's nobody better than Gus Malzahn. Like, it's what he does. Like, you could have 100% trust in him. Also, not be a yes man. Like, really, like, if Mike's messing up, I guarantee you Gus Malzahn will speak up. And then kind of in the recruiting thing, anytime you give somebody, even if you bring Marion up from G5, you give somebody a first opportunity, there's always that what if at recruiting at the highest level, at a Florida State, at a Georgia, et cetera. So Gus Malzahn is somebody that checks all the boxes. And kind of when you look at what our biggest issue was, in 5 years into a program, your offensive line is an absolute sieve and your running game is non-existent. You tell me, regardless of win and losses, has there ever been a Gus Malzahn offense that didn't have a good offensive line and run the ball? Top 20 offense. Say what you want about his head coaching ability, and it's the same thing on the defensive end of the ball. One of the best rushing defenses in the league. So, they kind of addressing what they're addressing. Florida State gets elite DBs. Let those guys work. Like what we had this year is a sieve. You could not stop the run. What good does it do to, take away everything deep if they can just run it down your throat? So that's more the direction we're going. And, the same thing back to Malzahn on the offense. You get him, hopefully Herb Hammond, his offensive line coordinator, comes in here. And, you fix that rushing attack. And I think Mike Norvell, the blend of him wanting to pass a bit more and some of those concepts that he's evolved into the offense, I think it's a beautiful pairing. Only time will tell. But I think the naysayers and the negativity around, they took play calling from him at UCF. Like, that's ignorant. Like, they don't take play calling because he doesn't know how to call plays. They take play calling because it's taken away from everything else in the program, or everything else in the program is taken away from the concentration of the calling plays. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll be pulling my hair out and I'll say, you were right. Just like people were talking about this before this season that fell apart. But I have 100% faith he's going to come in here and be able to concentrate as an OC and do his thing. I mean, he's an elite offensive coordinator. He was such an elite offensive coordinator at Auburn that he wins a national title, and then he's done with Gene Chiswick's bullcrap, goes off to some tiny hole in the wall, and then the next year he's the head coach at Auburn. Like, stuff doesn't happen like that unless you're an elite offensive mind. And then regardless of what happened at Auburn, he ends up getting let go. I mean, dude has almost a 500 record. I think his record's like 430 against Alabama in a period of time when they lost, like all their losses were to Auburn. It's like over 4 or 5 years. So I couldn't be happier. He's had good offenses, even though it hasn't quite worked out at UCF. And even though it didn't work out at UCF, it didn't work out for the reason of the CEO stuff, building the program. His first year there, they won 9 games. So as a change agent, his first year at Auburn, or maybe it was his second year, he gets Cam Newton, wins the national title. His first year as a head coach, he makes it to the national title with Nick Marshall. So, yeah, as a fresh face, turning things around and bringing a fresh group of guys in, I don't think the message gets stale that quick. I think we've got a chance to really turn this around.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. That's for sure. And then with Tony White on the defensive side, I know that Nebraska was happy to get him, and they had I haven't looked at the defensive rankings for this year recently, but I know last year they had a top 10
They're number
defense in the
18.
country.
Yeah, I think they were like number 11 net last year, or maybe top 10. They were number 18 this year overall, but they had a top 10 rush defense. Both UCF and Nebraska, top 20 offense, top 20 defense. So there's what, is there any team in the country that has that? I know some have like a 25 and a top 20. There's not many teams that have. If you're top 20 in both, you're a pretty dang good football team. So we'll see how it works out.
Absolutely. Appreciate you being here, the voice of college football, everyone. I want to let you know that Christmas is coming. You didn't need me to tell you that, but since Christmas is coming, shop Amazon. When you do, we've got the Amazon link in the description section of all the videos, and you help us considerably. It's an easy thing to do because it doesn't affect your shopping at all. Same shopping experience, doesn't cost you a penny. You spend $1 at Amazon, we get 3, 4, 5 cents, something like that. Makes a win-win situation. And again, I am telling you, I've sat next to a dozen people and had them go through this link. It instantly recognizes you. It's like you're clicking on your own link. So makes no difference. So appreciate you doing that. We got a book as well. You can look that up on Amazon as well. Disputed National Champions. I won't waste any time telling you about it right this second. It's a good read though. And takes you through the 1990s, but it's not a history book. It fast forwards through what we're going through right now with the 12-team playoff era. All right.
You want to run through the rest of these commits, and then we can talk a little quarterback before we get out of here?
Let's do that.
So we hit the flips, the big time 4 stars, on down to Zay Thomas, signed 4-star defensive back. The first ever Seminole Indian to play football for Florida State. So a really cool story. And a dope defensive back from American heritage, with roots going back there with Surtain, and another kind of indicator that possibly Surtain is going to be with us here for at least another year or two. So big keep there. That wasn't a surprise. Also Mario Nash, I believe he's the number 10 offensive tackle on one of the sites. It's these offensive linemen. Every site has them different. One offensive tackle, one interior O-line. But yeah, I think he's like a 12 interior on one of them and a number 10 O tackle on another. So that's a nice pickup. Daryl and Mandrell Desir are 2 guys who Florida State they camped here. They had visited. Florida State wasn't super high on them. Mike Norvell intimated that the size might not have quite been there. Weren't sure how they were going to fit. But with everything that went on, you lose Myron Charles. You may lose Kevin Wynn. He said they visited a game or saw some film, and just all of a sudden, like the size came around. They really grew and just really slinging guys around. So they became a priority for him at that point. I think these guys were just waiting. Like as soon as they got the go ahead, they were going to be locked in. And twin brothers. We've always heard about brothers on teams being a good thing for the culture. Coach Mike Martin made sure every single year he had brothers on his baseball team. So really cool. These are super great kids. They're like totally locked in and ready to come get to work. We'll see that. And again, they fit the scheme that they want to come in for that weak side defensive end for the 3-3-5. Then Max Redmond, the 3-star safety, a guy who's been locked in for a long time. We signed the kicker, Bruno Roos, a year after getting Fitzgerald in here, not Fitzgerald, Jake Weiner in here. You get this guy, so really, really excited about that. And then the last one was the guy I mentioned earlier, Tylen Cleveland, the JUCO defensive tackle. One name I'm missing off here is Jordan Scott. I see him. You got him right there. Jordan Scott is another guy. He is 6'7". He's like the number 2 JUCO wide receiver. So really fitting that bill of the size they want to bring in. They really felt like they lacked size in those rooms this year, on the lines and at the wide receiver positions. And that's something they really wanted to get fixed. So Jordan Scott is somebody, that could possibly fill that Johnny Wilson role if possible. Like I talked about this a lot. I don't care what level they come from. We found out this year we need guys that just can play and execute. If you're open, yada yada. So we'll see if it translates. But yeah, college football is there's so much more parity now in the lower divisions, every division, that these things really translate. You see it with Miami, you see it with all these teams that brought in a ton of transfers and had success early. So super excited about him. And the other guy, Sean Perot, he's another three-star offensive tackle that we flipped from UCF. That's a flip that I forgot to mention, but I think that's about all of them. Yeah, definitely a pretty darn good class, my friend.
Very nice. And you mentioned the kicker, which reminds me that I saw that Ryan Fitzgerald is up for the Groza Award.
Yeah, he's one of the 3 finalists. Second team all ACC, though.
That
This shit
doesn't make any
happens all the
sense.
time to us. It's like, I forget the guys, but back on the national championship in the Jimbo years when we're killing it, every year there's somebody that's up for the Maxwell or the Remington Award, one of the final people in the country, even win it, and they end up second team all ACC. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. So, yeah, best kicker in the country, second team all ACC. Pretty funny stuff.
Yeah. I know he had his issues a couple of years ago, but so it's nice to see him get those straightened out, get his head together, and live up to his potential.
Yeah, somebody told him he needed to go to a 2-step drop to get better and go for the NFL, and that was a mistake. He went back to the 3-step drop and was immediately, back to his old self, and then began rapidly improving. And then you come into this year, I think he's perfect. He's like 15 or something on field goals, and then also extra points. He was perfect as well, though he didn't kick a ton of those this year. I'm guessing that's why the ACC didn't put him up there, but it's like, if the people who judge this and decide who is the best put him up there, whatever. I'm surprised we haven't had a Heisman winner be second team ACC yet.
All right. Okay, man. Is there anything else we wanted to hit on?
We can talk quarterback because that's a big question. Our quarterbacks are just young.
Let's do that.
Kevin Sperry comes in. He's also going to be a true freshman. I think the writing is on the wall for Brock Glenn. I just doesn't make sense for him to say he doesn't fit the system. As we saw with his running is just side to side, get to the sideline, and it's just not quite as athletic at that short stature as Luke or the Trevor Jackson who you have as a preferred walk-on, or the Kevin Sperry kid you brought in. So I think they bring in a portal quarterback. The question is, do you bring somebody in that competes with Luke, sort of like a Florida situation with Mertz, where, possibly he could take over for him if he doesn't win it, if Luke doesn't win it, something like that. Somebody like Thomas Castellanos from Boston College. Or do you go get a Caden Salter, somebody that's going to come in and be your Cam Ward for a year, your guy that's just going to automatically be the starter. Another name that just popped up, Jackson Arnold, just hit the portal. So
yeah,
they've got some options there. I know a lot of people want Caden Salter. People hate when I bring up Thomas Castellanos, but Nick Marshall, that's what I think of. I mean, he's a different player, but it's like, just because he's short doesn't mean, like, we are going into this. We're not going to be the same team. We're not going to throw it as much and be doing these 7-step drops, thank God. So I don't know. Bill O'Brien and his coaching of Jalen Milroe and like telling him to be a wide receiver and running that pro style offense, it's like it was the worst possible situation for the kid. So I'm positive. I wouldn't mind if he came. I don't know if he has an offer that hasn't been made public, I don't think, but Florida State has reached out to him. And Caden Salter, I can't think off the top of my head what the graphic had on it, but it's like Coastal Carolina and Liberty and is where he's at, but some other team like Florida State is far and away the biggest brand on his top 5. So we'll see what goes down. But I think if Caden Salter comes in, we start telling some elite lies on how quick and how fast this thing can get turned around.
Jackson Arnold. Of course, Dylan Gabriel left Oklahoma basically because Jackson Arnold was the next guy in line, and Dylan Gabriel kind of got pushed out the door because Jackson Arnold was supposed to be the guy, and he had a rough year, got benched, came back, played a little bit better when they got him back in the lineup late in the season. Did lose 5 wide receivers, so that's a tough go. Guys loaded with talent, that's for sure.
No doubt. no doubt. And yeah, didn't Gabriel go to UCF?
Yes.
So there's a fit. There's a precedent there of of that. And he's got a hell of an arm and a hell of an athlete too. It's I don't know. It's close to Cam Newton as you can get for a white guy, I guess.
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
mean, not that he was Cam Newton, but just the skill set. You know what I mean? The size and the ability to throw the ball and run and all that stuff. Some people aren't big on him, but yeah, if you get him here and it worked out, I guess it's kind of a high risk, high reward thing. If he did work out, you'd have one hell of an offense for sure.
Folks, check out the Renegade Report with George, as we let you know a few minutes ago. Next time you're going live?
What's today? Friday, 7 Eastern for the
Friday,
Renegade Rundown.
7 Eastern with George on the Renegade Report. George, appreciate you being here. You really loaded us up with some good info. And I know it's a big banner day for you, just to get back some life and some breath and some hope, and some capable, accomplished coaches on the coaching staff. So it's been a good week.
Yes, sir. And now you get to go deal with a little depression over there with Cam. So yeah, you rub it in a little bit, man. Pick on it.
Well, just between that and then taking that playoff ranking hard, I don't know. I don't know what I'm walking into. You know what?
Here. Maybe you just let him be. Just let him. I'm sorry. But yeah, we're heavy on those Miami guys because they put out that statement last year when we got, oh, we can't believe how FSU is doing. We love the ACC. We think we love our access to, we have not just access to the college football playoff, but robust access to the college football playoff. And we're 100% bought in. Woo, it looks funny in the light now, boy. It looks funny in the light. They are losing their minds. And what's crazy is they're trying to act like, oh, we're just as upset as y'all, but we won't complain about it for 6 months. Oh, well, we didn't lose 2 of our last 3 games.
Yeah,
we were undefeated.
Different. Yeah.
Let's talk about this before we get out of here. Okay, so what happened? It's the most ironic thing in the history of college football. Last year, how did Florida State get left out? Okay, we cover against Florida the same week that Alabama has a miracle against a terrible, even worse than Florida Auburn team. They get a miracle to get out of that, right? And somehow, oh, well, Florida State's offense isn't good enough. Their quarterback, yada, yada. Alabama gets in, okay? Follow that up with this year. Alabama loses, and they only scored 3 points on offense. 3 points. Completely shut down by, again, a 500 team, 15th place team before they beat them in the SEC. They got a second win now, so they're like 12th. But just second, third to worst team in the entire conference put up 3 points. 3 points. And, you know, all that stuff, laughing about, oh, Florida State gets to watch Bama. And of all the teams, it's Bama. That bumps Miami out after they lose by 2 points to a 9-3 football team that should have been ranked to begin with, you know, and a Georgia Tech team. And to see what he put up there, the manual, whatever his name is, he put up there that Alabama is 6-1 against teams above 500. And Miami is 4-2 against teams that are above 500. That was the deciding factor. But guess what Miami was? They were 100% against teams that were below or at or below 500. What was Bama's record? Like 500. They lost to 2 of them. So they're literally 500 against 500 or below teams. So in the SEC, quality loss, that's what we always talk about. Quality loss, even if it's against sorry Auburn, that carries you. Well, they had terrible losses. It was Miami with the quality losses. But no, the two wins extra against above 500 teams, that's what carried the day for them. And it's, I mean, I know it's wrong, but at the same time, it's hard to complain when you lost 2 or 3 of your last games. Like, so I also get that, but there's a big difference in losing by 2 points at the end than getting blown out and only score 3 points on offense. That
for sure.
Has there ever been a team that scored 3 points in a game that went on to win a darn national championship or a BCS bowl or anything like that? Like, I don't know if that's ever happened in history.
Well, I can think of a few, but yeah, it's pretty rare. Ironically, Miami did. But I actually See, we don't have time for this debate, but I've got Alabama ranked ahead of Miami. I
I
think
would
they've
put
got
South Carolina in. Because according to what they did with Florida State last year, September doesn't matter. And they've been the hottest. They got the best quarterback. So that was the thing. Oh, with the quarterback. They're on a 6-game winning streak. They just won a ranked game. And they're the last team. So I know we don't have time for it, but it's just hilarious to watch. I love it.
All right, George. Thanks, man.
Later, man.
Back here next Wednesday at 6. In the meantime, George is live Friday at 7 Eastern.